Hi, welcome to ICE. My name is Salvador Alanis. I am one of the founders of the Institute for Creative Exchange, and this time we're going to talk to the other founder of the Institute for Creative Exchange. I'm very happy to have a conversation with Ximena Berecochea. Ximena is an extraordinary visual artist that has a very strong career based on how the image could be related to other media, could be related to text, could be related to actions, to performance, and her work has been a part of collection exhibited all over the world, and she has a PhD in literature. So it's funny how the literature also is part of the inspiration of what she does as a photographer. We're going to have this conversation, obviously here in Toronto. When we met, you were finishing your first series called In Air.
Yeah.
And it was a completely different way of working. No, it was more intuitive, more and with very intimate, very small photographies that you told me that it took a while to develop and to print, no?
Yes.
Because of,
it was a very detailed kind of photography. I was very into the tiny little things that would make up the photograph, and that series was about the altered states of perception. It was a reflection on vulnerability and ephemerality, and I took it as a tool to explore the point of view as if I were an insect. So,
yeah.
And to see everything in a very amplified way.
Yeah.
So working with a small format was very important. So because it make it necessary to come close to the image and see what was there. Yeah, it was very different. I think there's been huge jumps from one series to the other.
It's funny because in a way that when you finished the series, there was this I won't say imitation, but there were a lot of photographers that more or less follow the same line of the landscape and the ephemerality and the elements. That it's not that you were really the very first, but for some of them there was a bit like a line that some of the photographers of your own generation followed later, and that was, for me, that was very it was something significant, and then you jumped into this thing of animal, which is it was working like in a palimpsest, no? Like working like in different layers and layers and layers, and you were putting, because you took the photos of animals first, and then
first I took the photographs of the animals, and then I worked on the darkening of their eyes as a way of expressing how we cannot really know what they are thinking. Looking at them and them looking at me was like, what's happening? So I make then these huge prints of these animal portraits, and then I transport them. I went into a trip, a very long trip, and I took these prints with me, huge prints, offset prints. It was not like a silver gelatin or anything like that. So what I did was to bring these portraits to another landscape. It was a very, very rational, I think, way of working. Opposed to the other one that
was more emotional
and more about human vulnerability and ephemerality. Yeah.
And that one, Animal, was the one that you showed in
Centro de la Imagen, yeah.
No?
Yes.
With Patricia Mendoza, no? And she was the one who really opened, because we talked with Pia Elizondo, and she was talking about Patricia. That was very important for all your generation. She was a very kind and really a loving person, which was very, very loving to all to everyone. And she opened the space for you and for Pia, no? You shared, it was at that time that you shared
this exhibition was a big exhibition that we had together. I mean, it was not together, but we share the space. Let's say, like,
the space. I remember that one, and it was very, very interesting. And then after that, then you went to Banff, and then is when you started to take this dummy that I understand that you found it in a plane catalog, no, in the catalogs of planes that it was American Airlines that used to sell this funny object of a kind of a fake bodyguard.
Yes, I found it there. I saw it there for the first time, but then it was hard to actually find because they didn't really have them when I called to find this dummy. They didn't really have them anymore. But I found it in a very strange way in an auto shop in Mexico. They had this guy sitting there inside the car, and I thought, okay, I want that guy. And that's how I.
Yeah, no, and I think, and I remember that Sarah Diamond was at that time she was the director of the Media and Visual Arts department of the BAM Center, and she was very interested in the work in your work using this dummy, no? And it was
funny. We had some conversations, and
and tell me, because you had this photo, and some people don't know about this photo of the Chinese tourists with the dummy with Joe.
Yes.
Tell me what happened.
One of the images that I was taking with this dummy is I wanted to do like a very touristic image in, I think it was Lake Louise, and it was filled with tourists. So I asked, there was a Chinese tourist, and I asked her, would you mind sitting with this guy, like with your arm with him, as if he was your friend, like. Yeah, and I'm just gonna take a photographic image, like a very touristic image. And she was like, yeah. And then I took my time, because I normally take my time taking photographs. And I took my time, like making the perfect frame. And when I'm finally done, I look back, and there was a line of tourists that wanted to take a photograph with the dummy. So it was kind of, it was kind of
You should have opened a business there.
Yeah, then I thought, okay, this is what I should be doing.
Yeah, I understand. And then, so after that you were exploring with all these kind of like dolls and dummies and all that, then what happened? Because then you started doing something completely different, no?
What I did after that was a series on the desert in Coahuila in Mexico. And I did two different series there. One was with objects that I brought to the desert landscape, and another one that was that I made some scenes with French dialogues with the photographers that were with me, and I made them like represent these dialogues in the middle of the desert, which was kind of absurd. Those are, I think those are the two first projects where I started working with the relation of text and image. And it's something that I've been doing for a while.
So for this project that you did in the desert, who were there? I mean, other photographers like whom?
It was Nicola Lorusso, Gerardo Montiel Clint, Gabriel Figueroa, Laura Barrón, Jaime Carral, Javier Hinojosa, Alfredo De Stefano, and myself.
And also, it's interesting because you work with them also as models, and you've been doing this for a while. I mean, because you also did the same when you were working on this residency with photographers and writers in Mérida, no?
Oh yeah, that was another series that I did. And it was, as you said, in the program of an exchange program funded by FONCA and the BAM Center for the Arts. So we were a group of 10 writers and 10 photographers, Mexican and Canadians. And the idea was to develop work in collaboration. But what I did with this project is that it was a very puzzling situation, because there was a language barrier. it was pretty hard at the beginning to work together, because not everybody spoke English, and not all the Canadians. I think none of the Canadians, or some of them, spoke very little Spanish. So it was very challenging to communicate. And I did a series where I walked with each one of all the participants right in the midday when the sun in Merida is really harsh.
Chilling.
Yes, and we walked, I don't know, maybe for half an hour or maybe an hour, this person and myself, until I saw that the person was really sweating and suffering with this weather. And then I took 4 portraits of each person, and the idea was to make a polyptych form with 81 portraits, and referring to the situation of the language barrier. And for that program, I also, in that same trip, I developed another series called The Dance, where I asked a Mexican photographer to dance with a Canadian writer. And at the end, I did 3 mobiles, cylinders that move very slowly, and they are formed with these photographs of this couple dancing. So the idea was to do kind of a contrast of how the language was a barrier, but on the other side there were other forms of communication, and relationships and collaboration was going on.
There's something that I'm thinking now that you've been talking about this walks with a group, and you were with all these photographers and writers and around Merida.
Yeah.
And it's again something that I talked to with Laura Barron, a bit with Gerardo Montiel, also with Silvana. I think that with all the photographers that are now participating in our selection for the ice store, is this relationship with the landscape.
Yeah.
And it's something that is very present in you. And I think I was telling Laura Barron in the interview that it was Jose Antonio Rodriguez, the photography critic, that he said that the landscape was so important for your generation. Is it something that you're thinking about, or is it?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there was a group of photographers that were working with this landscape theme, and yeah, in fact, Jose Antonio Rodriguez was the curator for an exhibition that took place with the Patricia Conde Galleria. And it was about that, and it was 2 groups that were not that small, and so yeah, there's definitely an interest in landscape.
And also he curated the Photo Fest selection
Yes.
of young photographers many years ago in Houston. No?
Yes, and in that moment, the group that were in that collective exhibition was not all. We were not all working on landscape. Some of us.
Yeah, I remember.
think it was
Adriana Calatayud was not working on landscape. But it's something that is present in some of the work, and it's just for me it's interesting to mention, no, that it's something that is kind of an element that is repeating in all these the photography. Was that the time that you were the Caperucita?
Yeah, the next series was Little Red Riding Hood. That it's the most obviously related to literature. Yeah, and that's a series that it's formed with diptychs of text, the text of the whole story of the Little Red Riding Hood, and I did that at Banff. And it's about imagination and how the verbal language is different from the visual language. So it's a reflection on that.
Yeah. And then why moving to Canada?
Everything was going really well in Mexico. There was not really something that was wrong. For me, it was just like an impulse of of having a different experience, and I just had two sons. I mean, I was about to have our second son, and I really wanted to explore a more safe environment to raise kids. And I had been in Banff, and I really loved Banff. And when I was younger, I had lived in Vancouver for 1 year, and I had very good memories. So I thought it was an option, and why not exploring it? And now it's been 13 years that we're here. So.
And is it good? Was it?
Yeah, it's been really good. It's been really hard as well. I mean, it's not easy to leave everything behind and starting. It's like starting to write your story from zero again. So, and we were not that young, so it's been challenging, but it has a very good side, obviously, because we're still here.
And
so, yeah.
Well, when you moved, you also you went to school back. You went back to school.
Yeah.
So why was that?
As I was saying that you have to start from zero, I thought it would be really difficult to make a life on photography. And I had this other line in my professional life in Mexico because I had studied literature. So I thought, okay, let's continue with the studies, and it will help me to make a bigger network in Canada, and meanwhile I'll be figuring out what will I be doing, and it has been really good experience.
And here, what have you done in terms of photography? What were the series here?
I have done several series. I was invited by a friend that I met at the Banff Center for the Arts, Elizabeth Greisman, and she invited me to participate for the Nuit Blanche. And they had already the topic for the exhibition. I was working with Elizabeth and with a group of Canadian artists that she invited, and it had to be something related to the Spadina Museum, which is a house from the 1800s, where a very wealthy family from Canada used to live. So the idea was to develop something related to that, because the exhibition was going to take place there. I worked with miniature furniture and objects and artificial objects like little flowers in contrast with the real house. So that series was really meaningful for me in that moment, because it's not only working with something related to the house, but it had also to do with the fact that I had moved. No, my house was completely moved here. Now this had to be my home. So it has to do also with displacement and making yourself alive in making your life in a new space. Wildlife was also exhibited at the Spadina Museum, and it was also for Nuit Blanche, and the topic was given and had to be something related with wildlife. And I decided to do something that was very subtle, but at the same time it showed the vulnerability again of humankind, and it was all through the sting of a mosquito bite.
You were also doing some work with Index G, with Lee Cassin Gallery, and it was even before moving to Canada.
Yes.
You were like collaborating with them.
Yeah.
And you did a piece with a Chinese poet.
Oh yeah.
How was it?
Holy Lee and Lee Cassin, they invited a group of artists to work with poems of a very well-known Chinese poet, and they gave me a poem that is called Catching a Squirrel. So for me it was very interesting to work with that, because it's something that interests me, to work with text. And this poem for me was about ephemerality, about how we see things, and at that moment you won't see them again, and you may not remember them again.
And then you were with this exhibition at YYZ with the book, and also with Emma Lopez and Pedro Narvaez doing this digital mapping piece that had a very good reception in general. No?
Yeah, this series is also very important for me. And it's related to a very well-known and very iconic novel in Canada from Robertson Davies, The Fifth Business. And what I did is to work on the first scene of the book and in the concept of synchronicity that was very important for this author, the concept of synchronicity according to Jung. And how the events may not be related by a cause and effect always, but it could be related more as we decide to put them together because of their importance. In this piece, I have a digital mapping, so it's the first time that I work with digital mapping.
One thing is that I wanted to know a little bit more is you started, the Institute. You're one of the founders of the Institute for Creative Exchange of ICE. And what does this mean for you in terms of your career as a photographer? Why starting something like that? And is there something like that you planned before coming here? Was it?
No, not really. We never planned to open an art institute. The thing is that when I finished the PhD in literature and seeing that making a living from photography was not an option, and my experience in the academia on the other side showed me that I was fascinated by this world. It's really a seductive world, the academia, and I went with the inertia when I ended that I kept on working there, and I was thinking of just being an academic and forgetting about my other career. And then I realized that this is the academia is such a fascinating bubble.
Yeah.
It's such a fascinating bubble, but it's so endemic that it's quite easy to get stuck there because it's so interesting. It's like it's a machine of thinking, no, that never stops. But the thing is, what I felt is that everything is inside, and I wanted to break this bubble and connect the academia with the outside world, and that's where ICE came into the scene for me. I wanted to kind of put together my two paths, no, the academic and the arts, and it was a way of linking and working on networking and bringing together some of the people that we knew. For example, in Mexico, the artistic scene was so powerful, and it was really unknown in Canada. So we really wanted to bring this together. And the academia, some of the academics really study the work of these people. So I thought it's going to be amazing to bring them together, so they can not just read about these people, but talk with them. No.
So now that you did all this new exhibition of with digital mapping, and now with the Institute, what's next for you?
Right at this moment, I'm on the process of figuring out. I have some ideas, but I'm still defining.
Okay. Well, Ximena Berecochea, thank you very much for the time.
Well, I really hope that you enjoy this conversation, and if you like this work and you want to know more, and if you want to acquire some of these pieces, we have special editions of any of the pieces of these artists at the ICE Photography Shop. This is the address, icestore.me, and if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at exchange@iceamericas.org. And soon we're going to have also a collaboration workshop, so stay tuned and hope to see you soon.